We've been talking for a number of weeks now about how to have a blessed life, and I asked the question the last 2 weeks, who here would like to be more blessed? And I'll just ask that again. Who here would like to be more blessed? Recognize you're already blessed. You'd like to be more blessed, okay? And when I say you're already blessed, I can't miss this, folks. Compared to the rest of the world, we have abundance. We really do. When half the world lives on less than $2 a day, we have abundance. We're already blessed. But we're saying, how can we be more blessed? Because God is interested in blessing us so that we can be a blessing. Heard a great story about Craig Groeschel, his pastor in the United States. His children were having a conversation in the back of their car one day about giving. And their names Joy and Stephen. And Joy would be the younger, about 5 years old. Stephen's 6. And Stephen was explaining to Joy that she needed to give her money to charity. Joy, you need to give your money to charity. And Joy says, I'm not giving my money to charity. Stephen says, Joy, you have to give your money to charity. When you give, you're actually giving to God. You're serving God. And she says, I'm not giving my money to charity. Joy, you have to do this. It's the most important thing we can do. It's to show God we love Him. We must learn to give to charity. She says, I'm not giving to charity. I don't know her, and I don't think I'd like her anyway. I wonder how true it is that many of us feel the same way when it comes to the topic of giving. We think, you know what? It's my money. I earned it. I'm not giving it. Am I not giving my money, my time, my resources? I'm not giving them to anybody. You don't know how busy I am, Geoff. Man, my life is so full. I don't have time. Never mind money to give away. But the Bible is crystal clear on this topic of giving. It really is. In the book of Proverbs, in chapter 22, it says, the one who has a generous eye will be blessed. Someone who looks for ways to be generous will be blessed. And Jesus, in Luke chapter 6 and 37 and 38, he said these words, judge not, and you will not be judged. Condemn not, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Verse 38, give, and it will be given to you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, will be put into your lap. For with the measure you use, it will be measured back to you. Now, folks, you don't have to go very deep into these 2 verses to recognize something very simple Jesus is doing. He's explaining to us something that's from science class. Do you realize that? It's called cause and effect. Right? If this, then that. We learn this in math and in science as we're growing up, and then somehow we think it doesn't apply to real life. But here it is for you. Go back to verse 37 for a second, if you would. Judge not, and you will not be judged. Condemn not, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Is anybody confused by this cause and effect? No, it's crystal clear, right? But then he goes on and addresses the topic we've been talking about the last few weeks. Give, and it will be given to you. And this is the one he unpacks. This is the one he goes deeper. He wants us to get this one crystal clear. It's not just the same as. This is one area where when you do what God has asked you to do, He goes even further than just matching it. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, will be put into your lap. I said a couple weeks ago, that image is one of taking a bowl at the end of the day when they paid the workers on the farms in those days. They would come with their basket. And the farmer, the long-term employee who'd worked hard and been faithful all day, he would fill the basket and then he'd say, give it a good shake, bang it up and down a little bit. You've ever done this? Kids that go to the bulk barn do this, right? Try and get a little bit more in the bag, a little bit more in the container. So they pack it down and try and get it, and then you can put more on. And so you go home with the maximum possible, so much so, in fact, that while you're walking down the street, it's spilling. And the promise here is absolutely clear. It's not just implied. That when we give, God will bless us. Now, today's Thanksgiving. And so we thank God for our blessings. We thank God for filling our baskets. But as I read through, and I've studied on this topic, and I've looked at what Craig Groeschel, he talked about his kids, what he's talked about, this idea of the blessed life. I see him suggesting to us that we can be more blessed. And so today, this morning, I want to look at one key reason for God's blessings. I want to look at two attitudes we can have towards being blessed. And I want to look at three kinds of givers. 1, 2, 3. Can you follow that? One key reason why God has blessed us, two attitudes we can have towards being blessed, and three kinds of givers. Walk with me through this, if you would. To begin with, what's the one key reason God has blessed us? Now, there may be more reasons. I want to be clear. There's not just one reason God blesses people. Sometimes he does it just because he loves us and wants to bless us. Sometimes, when it's not your kid's birthday, you buy them a present anyway. Right? But in general, there's a reason why God blesses people. And Paul identifies it for us, if you're taking notes, in 2 Corinthians chapter 9 and verse 11. 2 Corinthians 9 verse 11 says this. Paul says, "You will be enriched in every way to be generous in every way, which through us will produce thanksgiving to God." You hear that? You'll be enriched in every way to be generous in every way, which through us will produce thanksgiving to God. Now I want to be clear as we look at these promises in Scripture. When he says enriched in every way, I want you to notice he doesn't say financially. Now, he doesn't say it's not financial, but I want to be clear when we talk about the promises in Scripture about generosity and giving. He promises much more than that. If what you're pursuing, if you think I can put some money in the offering plate and God's going to give me double, okay? I won't say he can't do that, but if that's the reason you're doing it, you're actually undercutting, you're underselling what God means by blessing. Because if all God meant by blessing was, here's some more money, here's some more stuff, why bother? Most of us have more stuff than we can store. Anybody here got a full basement? Some of you just went, whoa, yep, me Pete. Yeah. Truth is, a lot of you, if I went through your homes, I'd be able to go, wow, you got a lot of extra stuff. Things you don't need every day. You don't use on a regular basis. You're going, I'm saving it for a rainy day. I've had it since 1964. I had it from before Gary and Heather got married. Right? It's amazing how much we have. And we miss this. See, we undercut the goodness of God because when he promises to bless us, to enrich us in every way, yes, maybe that's financial, but he's talking about every kind of blessing. Relational blessings, not just financial and material. Intimacy, trusted, long-term friendships, relationships, good health. There's many, many ways God can bless. And for us to limit him, go, oh, well, if I'm generous, God's going to give me more stuff or money, is to miss the point. Because I know some of the most generous people I know live on fixed income, limited income, and yet they love to give and they've experienced his blessing and praise God and give him thanks like we heard people doing this morning. Because it's not just about stuff. It can be, but it's not just about. And that's the mistake that's made in some of the teaching, especially some days when I listen to what people are telling about on TV and whatnot, some of these TV evangelists and stuff, they have the nerve, the gall to lie to people and say, if you just put more money in the plate, God will give you more money. If you just give enough to God, you won't have to worry about how you're going to pay your rent. Folks, that's categorically just not true. Because there are people that are living right now in refugee camps that are struggling to figure out how to feed their children, but they still are blessed by God and they're generous with what little they have. There are people living on the streets. I saw this when we went to New York this past summer. People on the streets, when you give them something, their first thought is, I got a buddy over there, he lives around the corner on the street. I'm going to go bring him and share it with him. So don't tell me that blessing is just about money. It's clearly not. It can be. But the promise of blessing from God when we are generous is so much more than just money. We need to understand this and get this one clear. We are blessed, my friends. The key reason God has blessed us is simple, so we can bless others. We are blessed in order to be a blessing. That's what Paul's saying here. You'll be enriched in every way to be generous in every way. And when we are, people give thanks and praise to God. I can tell you that's true because I work with the benevolent team. And when we help out people in need, man, it's awesome how many people that otherwise don't go to church, maybe have no connection to the church, but suddenly they're going, wow, thank you. And we'll go, hey, we're just doing it because of God. And they go, well, thank you. Thank God for you. It's amazing how this works. We're blessed to be a blessing. And that principle goes all the way back to the Old Testament when God called Abram. And he said, Abram, I want you to go to land I'll show you. And then it tells us in Genesis chapter 12, verse 2 and 3. You can look it up if you want to. Genesis 12, verse 2 and 3. God says to Abram, before he calls him Abraham, he says this, I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. God's not interested in making people famous or rich for their own sake. He's interested in blessing us so we can bless others. This is the key reason God blesses every one of us, my friends. He goes on to say to Abram, I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you I will curse, and in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. And that's a promise that comes true in Jesus Christ. When God says, in you, listen, Abraham ended up rich, wealthy beyond most of our imagining, financially. But that wasn't what was so amazing. Because that fortune is long gone. But from his descendants came Jesus Christ, God in human form, is descended from that man. And as a result, every one of us can know him and through him know God. Isn't that incredible? We were blessed to be a blessing. God blessed Abraham to be a blessing, and we were blessed to be a blessing. Blessing comes from God, doesn't it? You were blessed to be a blessing. So if you agree with that statement, maybe you could repeat after me this statement. You're with me? You know what repeat after me means, right? Just checking to make sure we're all awake this morning. We've been struggling. Repeat after me. Because God has blessed us with more, we will intentionally give more. Do it one more time. Because God has blessed us with more, we will intentionally give more. And folks, I have to highlight intentionally. Because most of us are not intentional givers. I'm going to talk about 3 kinds of givers afterwards, but just recognize this. Most of us are not intentional about our giving. We give from time to time. We may give even large amounts. We may give generously from time to time, but we don't necessarily do it on purpose. And we do not treat our money that way in other areas. We spend on purpose, don't we? We spend intentionally. Anybody who's even sort of wise with their money builds a budget, makes a plan of some kind, be it on paper or at least in their head, and they go, when I get my paycheck, this is what I'm going to do with it, right? My friends, we need to choose to give intentionally. See, because God is saying, I've blessed you not so that it's for you. I blessed you so you can be a blessing to others on purpose, intentionally. Now, let me talk about 2 wrong attitudes when it comes to blessing, though. We have these problems with God's blessings. First problem we have, first bad attitude towards blessing is this: pride. We start with, I deserve this, or I earned this. Now, Jesus confronted this attitude directly. Again, if you're taking notes, Revelation chapter 3, verse 17. Listen to what Jesus has to say. Talking to the church in Laodicea at the time, he says, you say, I am rich. I have prospered and I need nothing. And there's people in this room who feel that way. Just call the truth, right? There's people who say, I've got everything I need. I'm doing well. I have good living and I have a nice home and things are going well. That's a blessing from God. But when pride gets in the way, this is the problem. When we start going, I have enough, he says, you say I'm rich, I've prospered, and I need nothing. He goes, not realizing that you are wretched, pitiable, poor, blind, and naked. See, what we think is not necessarily what actually is. We think we're doing fine. We think we're doing well. And we start walking around like, hey, I'm good. What do I need God for? There's a society out there filled with people that are going, hey, life's good because God has chosen to let the rain, the blessing fall on the righteous and the unrighteous. Lots of people who think, I don't need God. I'm good. And the truth is, their entire reward is right now in a time and place where thieves can steal and moth can destroy and rust can destroy. instead of storing up treasures in heaven. You know, this is where a lot of people who are well off end up, dealing with a pride problem when it comes to their money. But the interesting truth is, folks that are poor can also have a pride problem. You know how I know this? I've been here. I've been the one that looked at people who had a lot and said, you know, if I had that much, I wouldn't do what they do. I'd handle my money different. I'd handle it better than that. If I had what they have, man, I'd give way more than they do. What is that if not pride? Right? The ones who have little or nothing are walking around going, oh yeah, it's easy for them. Friends, don't kid yourself. That's the sin of pride. Be you rich? I'm good. I don't need anything. Be you poor? I wouldn't do what they do. What is that if not the arrogance of pride? We have a wrong attitude towards God's blessing in that area. And the truth is, if you're rich, it's because God has chosen to bless you. Financially, I mean. If you're poor, doesn't mean that God hasn't blessed you. He just may have blessed you in less tangible ways. And what's interesting to me is how many times people, I've heard the story after story, I've read story after story, people that go to the most poor, dark, difficult places in the world come away being blessed by the people they went to serve that had nothing compared to what we think we even need. It becomes a pride question. Because we've forgotten the source of everything is God. The second wrong attitude is shame. While some people can be proud of what they have, others are embarrassed by what they have. And you all know what I'm talking about here. The ones who almost apologize for having nice stuff. You go, hey, nice shirt. And they go, oh yeah, well, you know, I bought it at Value Village and it's not a big deal. Instead of going, thank you. Why don't we just say thank you when somebody gives us a compliment? The proud one's the one going, oh yes, I went to Moore's. It's a $100 shirt. Check it out. Right? You know exactly what I'm talking about, right? What's interesting is it's only in the area of money, only in the area of material things that we feel any need to be proud or embarrassed. You know, when my kids go, wow, when people say about my kids, wow, you got great kids, it never occurs to me to go, well, you know, they messed up last week. They're still a mess. I don't know what's going on. It's just, I go, thank you. Have you noticed that? It's only with stuff that we seem to feel either that we can be proud about it or embarrassed about it, and never instead just going, hey, it's not mine. I'm grateful to God for it. Thank you. And this is where it gets so challenging for us, because if there's one reason we've been blessed to be a blessing, then we come out with either pride or being ashamed of what we have. Either way, we then don't give for the right reason or in the right way. We can give out of arrogance or give out of embarrassment, instead of giving out of gratitude. What is today again? Thanksgiving. It's a story I heard before, and maybe some of you have heard it, but I love it, and it so illustrates the point. A woman was allowed to sing, encouraged, invited to sing on a Sunday morning, and did a fabulous job. Sang really, really well. And after the service, she stood at the door with the pastor. Standing at the door of the pastor, people coming by in the line, shaking hands, saying, that was great, that was great, that was great. And this lady, she just kept going, oh, it wasn't me, it was God. It wasn't me, it was God. It wasn't me, it was God. And this little old lady, I love, this is not pejorative, I love little old ladies. They are so honest. I love it. They don't worry about what people think. They just say the truth, and I love it. The little old lady looks at this lady who'd sang, and she says, you know what? It wasn't that good, dear. So whether it's our time, our abilities, our money, you see how we can have a wrong perspective on the blessing? Wrong attitude? Now there's three kinds of givers. There's three kinds of givers. If the reason we're blessed is to be a blessing, and we can have the wrong attitude about those blessings, we can fall into the shame side or the pride side. We need to just be in the thankful place. Thank you, God, for what you've given me. Thank you for the opportunity to bless others with what you've given me. There's three kinds of givers. The first is a spontaneous giver. A spontaneous giver. The spontaneous giver, I love spontaneous givers. Many of you are spontaneous givers. Many of you. When you hear about a need, when you see an opportunity, you go, wow, that's cool. Maybe it's a situation like, I know there's going to be some fundraising things coming out of this hurricane. There's going to be huge needs for rebuilding. Usually our government's great, and that one of the things I love about Canada is we've got a government that cares about people that are poor and hurting. We haven't got it all together, folks, but we've got some great stuff going on. One of the things that often happens is they'll match funds. They'll say, hey, if you give $1, we'll give $1. Suddenly $2 go help make a difference. Right? Isn't that a great thing? Spontaneous givers love this kind of stuff. Stuff that arises and comes up and you go, hey, there's a chance to give. And we see those. The problem is if the only way you give is spontaneously, then you're going to be limited in your giving. Now, let me give you an example in Scripture of a spontaneous giver. The boy with the loaves and fishes. Right? He did not wake up that morning thinking, somebody might ask for my lunch. There's going to be about 5,000 men to feed plus women and children. I better bring extra. Right? He did not plan to give away his lunch that day. He left home to go to work or do whatever he was going to do that day and found himself in a situation where Jesus said, hey, anybody got some food to share? And he's like, well, I know it's ridiculous, but I'll give you what I got. Not because he believed that his little bit would make a huge difference, but because he was willing to give. That's a great place to be, folks. Willing to give. Generous. Willing to share what you have. What I love about that story is that Jesus took that little bit and multiplied it. And I want to affirm you if you do spontaneous giving, because Jesus can take even the littlest gift and he can multiply it and do amazing things with it. But most people are limited to that. Now, I couldn't miss this opportunity as an aside. I mean, I know David's here somewhere. He'll appreciate it. To say this, if you're a spontaneous giver, there's no better time than the end of the year to make a spontaneous gift to your church. I knew he'd like that. But I say that because we look the first week at that you're supposed to bring the whole tithe, your first 10%, your best. I would give my first and best so God can bless the rest. We said we give that to the church, right? So maybe you haven't been doing that and you say, well, you know what? Actually, things were pretty tight, but now they're opening up and I want to make a gift. And hey, there's no better time to get right with God, to make a gift, to be obedient to God, to be a spontaneous giver. No better time. But you shouldn't stay a spontaneous giver because it limits what you can do. It's important that we learn to become strategic givers. And the difference is, a spontaneous giver likes being generous when the opportunity arises, but a strategic giver says, you know what? I'm going to plan to be generous. I'm going to set money aside to be generous. I'm going to make sure that when an opportunity comes, I'm not scrounging to try and figure out what little bit I can do, but I've actually set aside enough to make a difference. A strategic giver. Someone who plans to be generous. Isaiah 32, verse 8. Isaiah 32, verse 8, if you're taking notes. Scripture says this, generous people plan to do what is generous. Now, depending on the translation you look at, you can see some will also say noble people plan to do what's noble, or helpful people plan to do what's helpful. But the basic idea there is the same in all three. There's a plan to do what's right. With your time, with your money, with your abilities. When we plan for it, then we're prepared when opportunities arise. And so last week, we talked about that. I'll give God my first and best so he can bless the rest. That's the tithe. That's saying strategically, I'm going to arrange my time. I'm going to arrange my money around God. I'm going to put him first. I'm going to say, if whatever I get, I'm going to give this much to God first because I want my whole life to revolve around that central point. The one who blessed me so I could bless others. It's about doing it on purpose. I return the tithe to God. I don't give God the tithe. No, it's not yours. It was all his. But you return that tithe, that 10% to him. Through the storehouse, his church. That's what the Bible calls it. So you have a strategy and you start there. And it's found throughout the Bible. When Abraham said to his servant, listen, I want you to go find a wife for my son. This is the story in the Bible. It's great. He says, I want you to go find a wife for my son. Do you suppose he sent the servant empty-handed? He's like, I know his job is to go find a woman for my son. And as such, I know there will be a bride price, that's how it was done back in those days, to be paid. You got to give the father of the bride and the family of the bride something in exchange for her hand in marriage. Some of you are saying we should revive that tradition because you just paid for a wedding. And the point is, Abraham loaded up a camel full of valuables and things to give so that when the servant found the right woman, he could bring her home right away. He planned ahead. Imagine, Christmas is not that far away. My wife's excited. She's already playing Christmas carols yesterday. She was. She's baking pies for Thanksgiving, playing Christmas carols. But think about that first Christmas. We know the story of the wise men who came to see Jesus, right? And we know they traveled from the east. They traveled a long, long way following a star. And when they came and found Jesus, imagine the conversation. Wow, cool! We found Jesus Christ. We found the Son of God, born of a virgin, lying in a manger, wrapped in swaddling clothes. Anybody got some change? No! They planned for what they were going to do. They said, we're going to look for something. We want to honor him when we find him. And so they brought their gold and their incense and their myrrh. They bought the best they had. Prepared, planned to give strategically. Didn't they? How embarrassed would they have been saying, hey, check your pocket. You got some quarters? We've got to throw something on the plate. It's ridiculous, right? Spontaneous giving is great, but the next step in your journey is to intentionally give, folks, to become strategic about it, to plan to give. And then there's the third type of giver. These are the sacrificial givers, folks. And this is where we're talking about total commitment. These are the people who recognize that what we have in this world isn't for us, it's all for God. And you say, well, I can't even imagine what that would look like. Sacrificial giving, Geoff, what are you talking about? Well, for starters, you can be wealthy and sacrificial. I mean, you look at the stories of Solomon, for example, when he was going to be crowned king, the rule was, according to God's law, that you're supposed to sacrifice a bull when the king was crowned. Solomon's like, no, I want this to cost me something. This is such a huge thing. God gave me this privilege to be the king of his nation. I'm going to sacrifice 1,000 bulls. He goes way beyond what God demands or expects because he wants just to show and declare how much he loves and trusts God. And so he chooses to give sacrificially. His father, King David, did the same. When he was given the chance to offer some oxen at a sacrifice, a nearby farmer says, hey, David, I've got some oxen. You can have them because I know you need to make this sacrifice. And David says, I cannot offer God what cost me nothing. I can't offer God what cost me nothing. The point they're both making is, I want to feel it when I give. Anybody here a little bit cynical about the world today? I am. Anybody here a little bit cynical about rich people in the world today? Come on, be honest. If you're not paying attention. When I hear that Bill Gates, the richest man in the world, well, he's taking turns with a guy now. At being richest man in the world, they go back and forth. When I hear that Bill Gates gave $10 million to something, my first thought is, whatever. The guy could give $10 billion without breaking a sweat. What's $10 million for him? Right? Isn't that true? When I look at the amount of wealth some people have and their unwillingness to really dig in, we miss this simple reality that there are those, I believe there's even people in our midst this morning, that could quite nicely live on 10% and give away 90%. Let's be really honest. I believe there's people in this room, in this community, that could live on 10% of what they get and give away 90% of what they have and be just fine. And to be sacrificial in your giving, though, is not just about whether or not you're rich. I mean, that sounds like a pipe dream for most of us, the idea of living on 10%. Right? But how about the other side? That beautiful story in Mark chapter 12, again, if you're taking notes, starting at verse 41. Jesus goes into the temple and he sits down across the room from the treasury. In those days, they didn't pass the offering plates. There were these giant trumpets, they called them, that were against one wall, and you'd throw your money in there. And remember, they didn't have paper money like we do, so when you threw your money into this metal container, it made noise. Mark 12 and 41. And the rich people would come in and throw in just bucketfuls of money. It would be like crashing. It would be so noisy in there. Jesus is watching this going on. And then there's this little old lady. I love little old ladies. Comes along. And imagine, so the person comes up to the thing, crash. Another person comes up, crash. Another person comes up, crash. She throws in 2 coins, less than a penny's value. Ding, ding. I mean, that would have sounded louder than anything else that happened that day. So noticeable. And listen to what Jesus says to his disciples. He calls them over. And he says to them, "Truly I say to you, this poor widow has put in more than all those who are contributing to the offering box. For they all contribute out of their abundance, but she out of her poverty has put in everything she had, all that she had to live on." Don't tell me poor people can't give. That's the one Jesus honors above everyone else. Isn't that incredible? It's sacrificial giving. We see a lot of times, I've seen this and I've said this, I am guilty. Friends, before God, before you, I will admit I am guilty. There have been way too many times in my life where I just said, "Oh God, I just can't afford it, this paycheck." Or worse yet, where I was unemployed and just said, "God, I don't even have a paycheck. How could I possibly give when I have nothing?" But we're missing his promise at that point. You may not have much to give, but you've always got something to give. And when you give sacrificially, for you, 10% might be out of reach. Maybe you can give 1% because it's all you got left. But friends, he will bless when you give, when you're generous. When you have even less, that's the bigger sacrifice. Like I say, Bill Gates, he can get $10 million, whatever. People who receive it are grateful, but it's not really hurting them a whole lot. You know, in our pride and shame, the biggest problem is we lose sight of the one who blessed us in the first place. In our determination to control it all and to believe it's ours, we forget to be grateful, to say thank you to the one who gave it to us in the first place. But God has blessed you to be a blessing. And greater giving equals greater blessing for you. What we need to learn is to say thank you for the blessings. And thank you for the opportunity to share them. Let me tell you how I hope you will give. I hope, my friends, I hope that every one of us will give spontaneously. There's so many needs. But I hope we'll go one step further and start giving strategically. And for those of you that are already doing that, consider giving sacrificially. Some of you can get so committed, you're going to say, "You know what, I'm not just doing 10%, Geoff. I'm going to do 20% because I want to sacrifice. I believe in what God has given me. It's for others, and I want to make sure it can get in those hands that it can make the most difference." Maybe you can do even more. Maybe you're saying, I want to give till it hurts, Geoff, because you're telling me that if I give more, God's going to bless me more, and I want all the blessing I can get. Friends, the sacrifice is worth it. And he has promised a reward. The one who is a generous eye will be blessed. Because Jesus himself said it, it's more blessed to give than to receive. Now, the last 2 weeks, I challenged those who were here to consider trying the tithe strategically, intentionally, on purpose, choosing for 6 weeks to give their first 10%, to start there. Because the scriptures say, "Test me in this." God says, "Test me in this. And see if I will not open the floodgates of heaven upon you and bless you." You have the opportunity. Whether you've already started or not, start now. And test God in this and know that he is just waiting to pour out his blessing upon you. To show you all that he has. And to recognize the promise of Jesus that we read at the beginning, that it will, if you give, it will be given to you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over will be put into your lap. For with the measure you use, it will be measured out to you. Would you pray with me? Father, this morning, I ask that you'd take this challenging message. It's challenging for so many people, for me included, to really embrace the truth of this. And God, some of us are giving spontaneously, some are giving strategically, some are already giving sacrificially. Lord, I believe that all of us at times are guilty of forgetting where the blessings come from. Sometimes we're guilty of the pride of thinking it's ours to share when it's just sharing what you have. Sometimes we're embarrassed by how much you've blessed us with, and we try and hide, Lord, or downplay what you've done in our lives. Teach us instead this Thanksgiving Day to give thanks in all circumstances. To give thanks for your blessings, be they material or relational, be they good health, or, Father, just the opportunity. We forget that even life is a blessing. Thank you for the way you've already blessed us. God, do a work in us, soften our hearts, increase our faith, that we might give generously and experience the truth of your promises. I pray that everyone here today would experience the joy of giving, that we'd give cheerfully and spontaneously, and that we'd give, Lord, in thanksgiving to who you are. God, I pray that those who are spontaneous would continue to be, that when they see a need, they would meet it. God, I pray you'd bless them with more resources, with more time, with more of what you have, so that they can be even more generous. God, I pray for those who are strategic already, that you continue to encourage and show them the truth of your word, and they become even more strategic and prayerful and intentional. And Father, I pray that all of us, in some way, we'd learn the joy of sacrificial giving, of giving when it hurts, of giving beyond what we think we can, so that we might really, truly experience the joy that you have when you gave your one and only Son. You gave sacrificially first. Your Son was sacrificed on the cross for us. He gave His life to pay for our sins. He was perfect and pure and holy. And yet He died for the crimes we've committed. Lord, help us not to take that sacrifice for granted, Lord. You gave your Son, you sacrificed. And you ask us in return to sacrifice our lives in your service. Lord, today I choose, and Father, I invite you, I ask you to convict each one here to make that same choice, to give their lives to you, trusting that as we give you our lives, you will bless. As we give you our time, you will bless. As we give you our abilities and talents, you will bless. As we give you our money, you will bless. Father, I thank you that you're doing this work. Help every one of us to recognize what you've done for us. The truth that when we call on Jesus and ask Him to save you, He will. God, we pray in Jesus' name. Forgive us. Save us. Cleanse us. We give you everything today. And we say thank you for what you've already done, for what you're doing, and what you're going to do. God, some people here today have made the decision long ago to trust in you. And some maybe have been on the fence, not sure. I pray today they would make the choice to simply come before you and admit the truth, that they need you, that they want to turn from where they were, and that they want to serve you and experience your blessing. Lord, I pray you do that work in their lives. Jesus, forgive us, change us, and make us new. I believe you died so that I could be free, so that I could live for you. Thank you for that new life you promised to each one of us. And we pray together in Jesus' name. Amen.